share the screen and start. Hey, there we go. We're started. There we are. Let's just. Right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Yep, 2 o'clock Tuesday. So back for another session today on the webinar. Yep. How many of you? Come on. How many of you? Well, is this the Boris speaking at 12:30? It's just an aperitif. Just an aperitif. This afternoon's webinar. Yeah, don't answer that one. Don't answer that one. Anyway, so if you kind of have to get mute. Okay, I wish I could say it. I never do. Mute everybody. And so welcome. I tell you, a lovely sunny day of coming. You've come inside to listen to this. So good for you. As always, a big thank you to those who are returning visitors. Always good to have you back. We're going to be introducing a loyalty card scheme soon, so welcome. And if anyone's new to the proceedings, well, welcome. Delighted to have you, because we've got a normal format applies. In normal format, we say we've got the chat line to use. There will be a quiz. There will be some contrived jokes, as always. You'll have the slides will be available for those of you who can't get enough of this. And there we are. I better know my best bit. We're recording this. Hang on, it's posture right. That's better. We're recording this. Yeah, so that'll be available through the Humber Growth, and that you can always tweet. Yeah, you can tweet, or using that @ sign or the hashtag. Yeah, so. There we go. Right. What's next? What's next? I know what's next. You can't wait. You can't resist, can you? You can always use the chat line. It's always use the chat line. Little quiz to keep you on your toes. So without further ado, here we go. Question one. Yeah, question one. PR and journalism both made it into the list of top 10 most stressful jobs in the United States, ranked next to occupations like firefighter and police officer. True or false? Oh, I tell you what, Sal's on the march here. Another quick one. Do you know the answer to that one? Yeah, I don't know. I can't wait. It is true. It is true. Yes, stressful jobs. There we go. Number 2. Here we go. 83% of journalists prefer to be pitched over email. True or false? Who's going to have a pop for that one? Who's going to pop for that one? I tell you what, false. Oh, I've got a few people saying false. Ooh. The suspense. I can hardly. It is false, because it's 93%. Aha! Weren't expecting that. They are 93%. They're busy boys. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Question 3. The average blog is 1,236. The average attendance at Hull City is also the same. Actually, I didn't say that. Anyway, just a quick apology to any fans of Hull. So the average blog is 1,236 words. Ooh, a bit of difference of opinion. A bit of a different opinion, this one. It is. Oh my giddy aunt. It's true. It's true. Yeah, you wouldn't expect that. Who's got them all right? There's only 2 more to come. Yeah. Actually, we are allowed to go off on a bit of a tangent. You know that 1 in 3 Britons was actually conceived in an IKEA bed. Did you know that? I'm amazed, because those places are so well lit and there's so many people about. Right, got that. Just tick that. We've got that one. Right, got that. Right, next one. Next one. We've got number 4. Question 4. Twitter is the social network of most value for reporters. Question 4. Oh, I tell you what. True or false? Sal says true. Everyone says true so far. Can I disappoint you? It is true. Yeah, there we go. That's one. And next one, always a good one, is a good one, it's a good one. Question 5. Average email marketing open rates range between 16 and 21%. True or false? Who's going to go for that one? Oh, let's a little look on the old scoreboard. Listen, I used to be able to do a Bruce Forsyth impression. I can't do it anymore. Despite sort of public protestations. Yeah. So I would do it if I'll do it for you if you play your cards right. Right, what we got on here? So we've got A. A lot of people are going for A. Oh, quite a few people go. Yeah, the average email marketing open rate is. It is true. It is true. So there you go. That's today's quiz. Yeah. Come on then. Who got 5 out of 5? Because there's always a prize. Always a prize. Not even money can buy. There's a prize. So come on. How many of you thinking? Isn't it about time you got on with the webinar? I think so. Today, we're actually going to talk about public relations. Actually, I must confess, before we start, I didn't think I was going to make it in time. I went out for lunch. Didn't think I'd make it back in time. I waited 3/4 of an hour for my starter to arrive. So I said to the waitress, why is it taking so long? This isn't rocket salad. Come on, how many of you heard that before? Right, anyway, let's less of this tomfoolery. People have been here for 6 minutes and he hasn't even mentioned public relations. And he thinks he's just padding. Right, come on, right. So we're not going to talk about press releases and writing copy just yet. How many of you came on this webinar thinking this is all about press releases? You'll be sadly mistaken, although we will shoehorn that into the end of this extravaganza, which I'll promise will fly by and will be finished by 3 o'clock. Right, what's next? Oh, I know. Public relations. What is it? Here we are. That's a good question, isn't it? So, how a company communicates with people, customers, partners, journalists, stakeholders, and the general public. That is a fair definition. So there we go. Because I would argue that all businesses, regardless of their size or their industry, need public relations. It's how you communicate with people. How about that? Always start with a definition. So if you're looking to expand your business's reach and to expose your brand to new people, welcome to the world of public relations. So, why? That's a good question, always a good question to ask. Because fundamentally, customers want to trust the brands they do business with. And nothing builds and fosters trust like public relations. There we go. Trust being the critical word there. And we'll talk about this a little bit more. So in effect, public relations is helping build brand, but we'll come on to talk a little bit more detail about the difference between branding and public relations. Now, you never expected that, did you? Oh, another quiz question. But we've had this question before. And it is, I'm trying to show myself, it's slightly current. The 79% of people are more likely to buy from brands that behave well during the coronavirus. Yes, everybody's heading for A. Well, you're right. If there was ever an occasion, and it's still here, the coronavirus, and even more so when you've watched what's seen happen at lunchtime, that people buy from brands they trust. And that was probably symptomatic as far as this gentleman was concerned, who I've referenced before, not in his role as Newcastle United owner, but in these blazing attitudes towards key workers, believing his staff were key workers, only to renege on that due to public pressure. And there are numerous examples that have probably gone into the sands of time where brands haven't quite hit the mark. And I'm sure you can come up with many where there's been often described as a PR disaster. Without wishing to sound political, some are suggesting our current government is having difficulty with messaging and making communications clear. Not going to comment on that. That is an issue to discuss in a group of less than 6. Ha. So there we go. Right, let's go on. So we've got a contrived reference in there. Right, let's move on. So this is often known as social proof. Now, social proof was born about in the mid-80s by an author who suggested that a lot of PR, branding, marketing, and you see it more and more now, that people will follow others, will want to have evidence of a product or a service and its performance, its value, etc. there. And you can see that the likes of Amazon and so many other sites of the same ilk work off reviews, people who've done it, people who've been there to do it. And we will invariably go to the likes of TripAdvisor and other sites where we're looking for this social proof. It's what the world is telling you. And one great definition, if I could just signpost Jeff Bezos, no other, the founder and world's wealthiest man, founder of Amazon, who once said branding was what people say about you when you're not in the room. There we go. Social proof. It's happening all around, and PR is an integral part of that. So here's the question. What's the difference between PR and branding? What's the difference between PR and branding? Now, if I was being a little bit interactive, which I'm feeling a little interactive today, I'm going to see if anyone wants to put a suggestion in one sentence on the chat line. It'll give me an opportunity to have a little libation. Excuse me a moment. Cocktail hour. Shaken, not stirred. Right. What's the difference between PR and branding? Has anyone got a question or an answer to that one? If not, I'm going to move on because we've got a lot to cover. And count. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Next slide. We've got one there on the chat line. What do we have? Oh, let's say, fantastic. Thank you, Sal, Chloe, and Lisa. PR is what you say and communicate, and branding is what people recognize. Gosh, I wish I'd use that. Chloe, what we say about our company versus what clients say. Oh my goodness, you're all right. Branding is the image you wish to prepare. PR is the message you wish to put out. Fantastic. You can do next week's. Brilliant. You've all here. This sounds probably ingratiating, but that's fun. They've all answered fantastically, roughly saying the same thing about communication and perception. I'm not saying I've got the definitive panaceic, good word, answer, but the difference between public relations and branding is often about starting at the end and thinking about the end goals. The public relations, I think if you go back to the chat line, in my humble opinion, it's about managing relationships, which many of you said in terms of communicating, whereas branding is centered on creating an identity. And I think, here you are, there's a confession. I think all 3 of you said that better than I did. Oh dear. Right, I'm going to borrow those ideas next time. So there we go. That's PR and branding. And my favorite slide, I'm not going to speak for the next 30 seconds. That'll be a first. I can't. I didn't last 30 seconds. I don't know, have I ever heard that before? Right, so there you are. Marketing, I'm a great lover. Trust me, he's a great lover. Advertising, so forth, and branding. But it's about perception, about perspective, and people seeing the issue from different perspectives. One would argue that the likes of PR and branding probably are the most critical because you've got third-party perspectives. But it's a great slide, obviously slightly light-hearted, but it's probably quite a good indication of the difference between those 4 things. There we go. And you'll get a copy of that slide. You can borrow it. Right. So, companies manage their PR and communication through various media channels, Simon. Come on, get real. And this is known in Simon's speak as the digital marketing mix. And for the next few moments, I'm going to talk about these three things. I'm going to apologize if you've seen this slide before, but this is a theory about public relations and what you'll see before, the differences about paid, owned, earned. Paid, owned, earned. This slide finds its way into each of my presentations because ultimately it's my perspective on marketing. It's about you and your message to your audience and how you differentiate yourself from your competitors, which is the fulcrum, in my opinion, of your marketing. Your message, your audience, that differentiates yourself from your competitors so you stand out from the crowd. So those of you who have survived a one-to-one with me will know that that's invariably the starting point in terms of where we look at marketing. But let's go back to paid, owned, earned. Right. I've talked about this before in different contexts. I'll leave it on the screen. So the theory of this is that to reach strangers or prospects, you invariably have to pay for your media. If you have customers, people you know already and work with, you own them and your media will be owned. And those who may be construed to be advocates, you've earned them. I'm going to go through paid media, owned media, and earned media. Where should we start? We'll start with owned media, and it's on the screen about some of the actual means within owned media. So let's go back home. It's where people actually think that you're in your home base. A quick quiz. Where's that? Oh, we've got to introduce for the house. Anyone remember where that is? We can go off on a tangent. We've got time. Remember where that is? And on the chat line, anyone of a certain age remember where that is? Well, if you don't know, I want to come back to it. Well, we've got one person who remembers it. Yeah, Sal, you're a legend. How do you know that? That is Southwark, the home of Dallas, the homestead. So think of marketing. Well, there's no contrived Dallas jokes coming, by the way, just in case you're wondering. So think of marketing as your home, the people that you own. Right. So let's move on. So think about your social media as being back at base. The first element of owned media would be actually, when you expect me to say this, is your social media posts. So atypically in a small business, you could be telling, like you've seen here, on the slide before, about somebody actually telling their story through social media posts, through humor, on Instagram post here about people showing humor relating to photobombing, a travel web company on Instagram, and really critically the explosion in use of video. So think about social media posts. We have covered social media at great length, but we'll touch upon it today in only sporadically. Now, the next part of your social media, your owned media, would then be considered to be your blog content. Now, normally blogs often fit into 4 categories in terms of what you'll do, and these are some suggestions. So if you're always struggling for creating content, think about guides on how to use your products or services, how you can solve a solution, customers' testimonials, or promotions or discounts. They often fall into one of those 4 categories when you actually are blogging. Now, interesting enough, the typical blog post usually covers the 4 elements. And the reason why I put images in there, we don't want dry text. One often great way is lists, and you've seen today, statistics often are a great way of illustrating a point, contributing quotes, video, and audio. So I'd recommend when you think about your next 1,256 words, you may wish to put some of these elements into your owned media. The next part of owned media would not this is a definitive list would be the copy you put on your website, which always, said it 3 times nearly, always be keyword friendly. So it's picked up within a Google search, which I've covered previously. The next area, often own media, and probably where a lot of people use it the most, is if you have a database and you are communicating with them by email. We've seen earlier what the opening rates are, between 16 and 21%. And this was one sent to me the other day. Yeah, the Royal Albert Hall. I went to the Royal Albert Hall. Not on the stage. Actually, my dad said I should be on the stage, you know, sweeping it. But I went to the Royal Albert Hall, and on their database, and I get newsletters, and you can see the tone of it was 6 months without you, and they were talking about their plans for social distancing, and what they perceive for their future events may well have changed in the light of what's happening. But again, they were communicating, quite a strong message there. So email marketing is still an integral part of own media, communicating with your customers. That's a whistle-stop tour through owned media. Let's move on to paid media. Social media advertising. But atypically, that will cover pay-per-click and paid advertising in that area. Pay-per-click is on Google, forgive me. Social media would be obviously boosting Facebook posts or posting on Instagram, or the likes of LinkedIn. Don't intend to cover that in much detail. The next one was influencer marketing. Now, I think for a lot of small businesses, find people who may well be influencers would be really advantageous to spread your word. Here's a great example to the National Geographic. And they were trying to encourage people there with a fantastic image to spread the word. And you've got sort of biologists, you've got the whole principle about people telling stories and actually encouraging people to share about the environment there. So you're thinking about trying to find suitable influencers relating to their particular topic. And you can do, look how many likes one post gets, and you're trying to create a band and a bow wave, I suppose, relating to finding influencers. Now, one of the biggest questions is how to find influencers. Because unlike probably the National Geographic, you sometimes look for smaller ones. Now, in this situation here, for a company that may be involved in likes of organic food, you just type it into Google and a Google search, and you'll find the normal platforms where people are blogging and talking about who potentially are influencers. And you can also, just by simply typing in things like, in this situation, looking for food bloggers, organic food, you can find those sort of people through that way. If you find influencers in bloggers or people with large followings, then naturally you wish to engage with them, and you might be far more likely to have your search. Now, the reason why it's paid media is sometimes you may have to invest a small sum of money for those influencers to promote your product or service. Mentioned about pay-per-click a moment ago. So again, it's a very fairly inexpensive way, if done properly and effectively, if you're looking towards getting a return on investment. And here's a classic example of the paid ad. There are, I always mention every week, there's been a fall in pay-per-click through Google. There are offers out there for people to take up. So the most recent one I've seen, you spend £25, you get £75 additional. So you can spend £25 to get £100 worth of pay-per-click. It can be affordable. Okay, so that's owned and paid. We'll talk now about earned media. So this is a tactic used to boost the conversion around your brand. It is essentially word of mouth, and it's considered to be a great PR tactic, but one of the hardest ones to do. Hence why you really have to earn the privilege, because in effect you rely very much on the advocates. Now, earned media normally comes from something you've done. So the 4 areas in which look at earned media is actually if you can get mentions in industry news. It's a great way of creating public relations if you're in a particular sector and you can get mentions through them either on either in social media or through their forums, etc. The second way is to look for praise on social media relating to what you do. So I will talk about it a little bit, but it's worthwhile making sure that you're registered with a listening platform. And I'll mention one later. You might say, hang on, Simon, what are you talking about, lad? High rankings on search engines, earned media. What are you thinking? Well, tell me if I'm wrong, but when you look at a particular search on Google and you look at the first page, you'll see the ads at the top and you'll see the Google My Business listings. Invariably, there's a certain amount of kudos being on the first page of Google. So, like the prestige, you've actually earned the right to be there through organic SEO. By definition, the people must, whether you like it or not, this perception, but the people think you are good. So there's one reason by perception be high on search engines, not just Google as well, but also Bing. And the other one, which I'm a huge fan of, as I mentioned earlier, social proof, relates to reviews. And I say almost every week, it comes into the conversation. If you've done nothing else, make sure you registered your business and effectively using your Google My Business, and to make sure you picked up in local searches, because having very strong, favorable Google reviews that you can share onto other platforms is a great way of creating earned media and social proof and kudos. And the key thing always is to ask for reviews. Now, if you go into Google My Business, you can send the link to your customers and encourage them to put reviews on there. Then you'd like them and you'd share them. Again, it's a natural tool to use to create public relations, also SEO. Right. So paid, owned, earned, public relations, whistle stop tour, but we'll now talk public relations relative to marketing, and this idea that people don't buy products, they're buying brands. But you've got to run PR and marketing in tandem. I'll explain this as earlier, as you saw with the light-hearted illustration, that someone connects with your brand as a result of your PR efforts, but converts to a customer as a result of your marketing tactics. It's something that you'll consider might be slightly ephemeral to some people, but you connect with the brand. It's the feeling of the brand, often through the generation of the PR, the feel-good factor, the social proof, and all this sort of buzz around it. But usually then they have to convert through a tactic. So that's dragging people to your website, through actually making it easy for somebody to buy from you. So let me go through some PR strategies and some tactics, and I'll give you some tools to use. In PR terms of public relations, you can look at business events. Oh, no, you can't. Well, you can to a certain extent, because we're all here today doing something virtually. And as you've seen, gatherings of conferences will wane. So our life is going to be spent for a while in front of the screen. There are lots of business events out. I've even attended business exhibitions online. This is our future where we have to adapt. So that's a business event. The second area, which is still extremely current, is the world of community relations. And for those of you who like to go to Malton, you might be familiar with the circular economy, and you've seen it in other towns. I see it in my own town, Sherburn in Elmet. The idea in Malton is that you're creating, as a mission there, to create a culture of collaboration and a circular economy. So it's the idea that people will be, in crudest terms, worth Googling, people will be working together. So if you're thinking about collaboration and working there, work in a circular way, places like that, you have to do it virtually or whatever, it is an important part of actually developing community relations, but then you'll pick up word of mouth referrals. So it's collaborating with others in similar sectors or partnering. Circular economy. The next thing I think very much about, and a critical part more than ever, is the idea of CSR. Just a quick anecdote. I just this morning been helping a client out complete a tender for the Scottish Government. 10% of the weighting on the tender was CSR. So issues relating to the corporate social responsibility, all issues, so sustainability, employees, all those issues, an absolute critical part if you're bidding for tenders in the public sector. Normally, quality and price dominate tenders, but CSR is an important part, but it's also a great tool for PR. So here was Xerox. Feel free to copy this slide. Haha. They're doing corporate world. Great. I love the picture. Do you know? See the lady with the plant pot on her head? You can't beat it, can you? But again, you've seen it before for many companies. Xerox is an example, and Levi Strauss is a second example about what they're doing in terms of their awareness and working with communities and being involved in great causes. So you think about your own activities. Myself, for me, in my own business, as a very quick anecdote, I work with a local ladies' prison for helping out offenders to actually integrate in society. So we're actually working with them. You feel like you're contributing to society, but also you're helping others. And then there's a subliminal PR elements from it, which will flow from doing good. And if you've seen ever that people are doing good for each other from the last 6 months, where people have helped each other, it's still important to do it from a corporate point of view. There you are. I'm now going to get off my soapbox. Right, what's up next? Yes, what's this on the list? Employee relations. For those of you, PR is not just about communicating with your customers. I talked earlier about stakeholders or employees. How many businesses do you work with and you've been to where the communication in the within the company isn't very good? Well, for those larger businesses, even ones with 20, 30 employees, the actual internal PR is absolutely essential. There we go. And then finally, the one you've actually taken me 35 minutes to get to this point, the issue relating to PR strategies and media relations. So you're expecting things about PR and writing press releases, but we're going to come on to that. But before we do, I'm going to go through some whistle. I'm not going to use. I'm not using the phrase whistle stop. That's three. I've used it 3 times. Okay, let's stop it. Right. Here are some measurements. In looking at PR. Firstly, the growth in your backlinks to your site, the mentions of your brand, your conversions from inquiry to order. A good one is your domain authority. If you've 100 in your domain, I'm going to give you a pat on the back and carry you through the streets of Hull on a chariot. It's unlikely to get to that point, but your high domain authority, the traffic into your website, your social media engagement, and how many times people share your posting. Things are 7 measurements. Don't forget, marketing is a science as well as an art. 7 ways in which you can measure your success of public relations. Right, what's next? What's next? What's next? Some tools that you can talk about. Press releases. I know. Okay. Let me do this first. PR tools. Here we go. You get a copy. You can't take all this stuff in. You're going to get a copy of the slides. Whistle through these things. A lot of these are free. We like free in Yorkshire, don't we? Brand 24. I came up with that name. Helps you monitor online mentions about your brand. You can all read. A news tip search media mentions by keyword or handle reaching out to journalists. So you can go onto that site, and again, you'll see the mentions relating to various different topics. There are 2 to choose, and there are others. Oh, new are coming. I love Google Alerts. Yeah. So again, every day I get a Google alert relating to the certain keywords I've mentioned. Great thing to do, free thing to do, recommend it heartily. But Google Alerts only pick up stuff that's been mentioned on, you know, guessed it, Google. But if you use the likes of Mention, you can track what's mentioned in media and on social media. So Google Alerts and Mention. And yeah, look at the value I'm offering. Because here's more. What? More boy. Monitor backlinks. It mentions, helps you track where you mentioned in coverage, and it gets a backlink to your site. Get in there. And they are the one that you have to pay for. PR Fire is a paid tool to help you distribute your PR, and you can get a report. So there's 6 tools there that you may wish to use that will help you in terms of your public relations, your paid, owned, earned. Oh, what stuff. So it's come to the bit you were expecting. How to write a press release. So it is part of what we've talked about, paid, owned, earned. It will fit heartily into any of those 3 categories, because you may have to pay for the privilege of writing it. But here we go. Here's some tips. Mentions of Shakespeare are normally barred from being on my webinars, but I know it sounds you like it. So you're thinking about, you're getting your pen out, and and to think about what you're going to write. So before you do anything else, answer these 2 questions. You have a human interest angle. Can you show your news has an impact on people? The word appeared in different forms in those 2 questions, human and people. People and human. However interesting it may be, if you've designed a new widget or you've offered a new service, people would like to see the human element. However meritorious you think, so please answer those 2 questions before you put your ink and your quill together. So what I'd suggest is this. Remember those days we used to buy a newspaper? Oh, mornings. So used to read, and so I'd look, you can go online, read the news in brief section, because if you're going to write anything online, is to make sure you can capture the story in 50 words or fewer. So I'll touch upon this in a bit more detail, that you should construct 2 sentences of 25 words each. And here's a challenge for you. You go onto a newspaper, buy a newspaper, look online, and I'll give you £1. You can email me, I will send you £1 if you can find a sentence in a newspaper of more than 25 words. And you have my word, and I'll send you £1 in the post. There we go. And if you do, you send me one as well if you do find it. But anyway, first paragraph, think about capturing what you're going to say in 50 words, 2 sentences, 25 words, constructing those. And then your press release will follow. The first paragraph captures it, and then everything else is explanation, which I'll cover here. Not a very good slide, this one, but a lot of words on it. Please avoid waffle. Get everything you can into that first paragraph. The second paragraph explains things. The third paragraph often is a quote, and the 4th paragraph is the call to action, the referencing, the next steps, etc. First paragraph, information. Second paragraph, detail. Third, quotation or context. 4th, final bit. Write your press release with that in mind. Don't worry about it being imperfect, because often a journalist will put it into their own words. That will help them if you can construct it in that particular way. So, how do you get to the journalists? Well, please bear something in mind. Journalists have quiet days. Yes, they do. And they're looking often for stories. They'll go onto Twitter in particular to look for stories. Make their job easy for them. Go to them. So who should you target? Go to the local press, the specialist press, sector your company's in, or the specialist press for the people who feel will benefit, or the consumer press if it's a biggish story. They are, I know it may be difficult, they are amenable. Make their job easy for them. Here's not a great slide, please forgive me. I work with a client who actually makes a different type of PPE, and they created a face shield that had antimicrobial properties. It's one step up from what you may see in the being used. And they went to the local community press, the Hornsey Press, and there you have the story. Hornsey resident helped produce unique PPE face shields. It had to have a human angle. It's got nice pictures and it's got a story behind it that's localized. That story then gets syndicated to all the other newspapers within that particular group and elsewhere, and the story gets picked up. So often the stories that appear in the national press start in the local press. So you can just do it even for a community like Hornsey. And again, it's fantastic public relations. It's submitting the story, and you can see it's far more than 4 paragraphs because I went into far more detail. So, little 3 tips there of paid sites you can use for creating your press release and submitting it to these particular sites. You will get a copy of the slides. So think about Newswire, PR Web, and Newswire. We can actually get your stories out there. Now, what's this doing on the screen? Well, if you don't want to do exactly that, you can actually, it's so difficult for you to actually think, oh, I'm having real difficulty in writing something. Why don't you get somebody to write it for you? There are specialists out there to do it for you. And on the screen are 2 freelance websites where you can post a job and you can get people to bid to write your story. So if you can't do it yourself, get someone to do it for you. Hasn't that 44 minutes gone by quickly? Hasn't it gone all right? It's been all right. Oof. Thank you very much for attending. I hope you have got an insight into the world of public relations, paid, owned, earned, and lots of tips that will help you. So, what comes next? Well, I'm going to answer some questions in a minute. But next week, here's the good news. Some good news. It won't be me talking next week. I'm just going to be the intro guy. I've got one of my colleagues who's going to come and talk to you about how to sell on Amazon. I'm just going to be the warm-up man, and I'm going to hand over next week. So there you go. I'm now going to stop sharing. I'm going to invite some questions and see if anyone's got anything they would like to say. If not, we can all say goodbye to each other. Anybody got any questions on the chat line? Or have I just beat you into submission by the sheer volume of insightful public relations? Little drink time. So, anybody got any questions? Oh, Sal says thank you for today. So it's yes, thank you, Sal. Thank you for being part. Thank you for Sal, Chloe, and Lisa for their questions, and hopefully everyone enjoyed it. Well, if there aren't any, it's going to be au revoir. If not, what Lisa's asked a question. I know we always on. You think I was floundering? I was going to waffle on. What? And Sal's asked, and Lisa asked 2 questions. Sal's asked, can you remind me what which are classed as listening platforms. I'll try and answer that one. So listening platforms will be the likes of Mention, Google Alerts, Hootsuite. These you plug in its crudest terms, you register, and you actually type in terms that you think that would be appropriate, and people will listen in. So, for example, if you're in Scarborough, you can shout out to anyone who's in Scarborough. You may go into Hootsuite, type in the word Scarborough, and you'll see in your feed everything relating to the chosen social media platforms, Scarborough. Hopefully it's answered that one. Google Alerts is a great one for picking up Google searches. Pauline's asked, please could you run through the four local press types, not the local ones. The four local press types, not the local ones. So we talked about local press, we talked about specialist press for your industry, special press that your consumers may read, and then your national press. And also, not to mention, don't forget the radio. Don't forget the radio. It's a quick shout out to a Queen song. Don't forget the radio. They're also a great way of actually also be looking out for copy as well. Think about that one. John says, can you give a bit about using videos and photos in PR? Great question. Thank you, John. Most press releases will want a photo, but I'd strongly recommend actually including that yourself. Sometimes they'll bring a photographer along. If you want to submit a photo, please make it, people smiling, their teeth, and showing something. So hopefully that's covered that one. What else have we got on things? Pauline, thank you. Oh, Sal was mentioned. No chance. It's North Yorkshire. Scarbados. Oh my goodness. Can you remind me? Classified. Thank you very much. What's domain authority? Great question from Lisa. And we will cover that here. Here's a great defensive way of answering that one. We're going to cover it in another webinar. But in a nutshell, it's about how you scored with a combination of things. It's worthwhile. We'll cover it in more detail. You actually are given a ranking by lots of platforms as to your domain authority. The higher the domain, the more expertise, the more authority, and the more trustworthiness you will have, which is part of the Google algorithm and ranking. That's a great question, though. I intend to cover that further down the line. And any other questions? Any other one? 100 is the best for domain authority. It's very hard to achieve that, but it's worth going through and if you can attain that. Yes, speak to your web guy about where you're registered as your domain. They should be able to feed you that kind of information. It's the independent ranking of your performance. Right. Silence. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to say au revoir. Thank you for listening. And hope you've had a good time today, learned something. Thank you. See you next time round. Yeah. It'll be great to see you again. If you're there next Tuesday, love to see you. In the meantime, don't forget, I will send you a copy of the slides. You'll get an invite to next week. If you want to survive some one-to-one support, that's fully funded. You can have that as well. And if not, we'll see you next week for Amazon. And there's a whole series of webinars which have put forward to be delivered throughout October. Do you know what? We're even going to experiment. I know it's hard to believe. We're going to experiment one afternoon with 2 webinars. Can you believe that? You remember we used to go to the cinema, the double bill. We're going to have a double bill one afternoon. If anyone who attends both of them, oh, my mother's going to come to both. That's the 2. You want to join her? We'll do that. Right. Al's asked a question. Does the support come under the Digital Catalyst or other stream? Support I'm referring to comes under the Humber Business Growth Hub, which I am delivering for, but is fully funded support under that program to have a marketing or sales one-to-one. So all you have to do is either drop me a line or contact your local business advisor, and we can do that. Now, topics are varied. I spent 2 hours doing LinkedIn with somebody the other day, and I've done whole work on a company's website, or just given general, or built a marketing plan. We can pretty do anything. If I can't do it, I know somebody who can. There is an end to my talents, and I know my shortcomings. So, but happy to do that if you want some help. And now just waffling because it's finished. But right, any questions? Any other words? If not, I'm going to say thank you to everybody for listening. Enjoy, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. I will hang round in case anyone wants to chat to me, and I will unmute everybody. How do I unmute everybody? How do I unmute?